Hi there. In this episode, older bargain drum machines. This is a top 11 list and it was viewer requested. I have owned or used a bunch of hardware drum machines in my life. I don't own any at this time. I believe drum sounds are one aspect of music production easily replaced with good sample libraries. Let me be clear on what I've just said. I said drum sounds, not drummers. Great drummers are worth their weight in gold. Remember, this is a list of bargain drum machines. You're not going to see a LinnDrum or a TR-808 on this list. I'll probably do a top 11 list related to high-end drum machines, but this ain't it. Also, this is just a top 11 list. It's not in-depth reviews, but on some of these instruments, I'll give you a lot of information because I know some people come here for that. I've used all of them at one time or another, and some of these I have owned. I was as careful as I could be providing you the specs and the features, but as always with any of my episodes, I encourage you to do your own due diligence. Some of these units are over 40 years old. I found the manuals for most of them, but still, the manuals are sometimes not as clear as they could be. All of the units, except for one, are from the 80s. That exception is from the year 1990. I included it because it's a smoking hot value, though technically not a classic 80s drum machine. At number 11, Yamaha RX-15. 12 pads and a small 16x2 display, but super affordable for an 80s drum machine. It was released in 1984 along with its more capable big brother, the RX-11. You get 4-note polyphony, 28 sampled sounds, 100 patterns, and 10 songs. In addition to the LCD display, you also get a 2-character LED display. The weakness is not the display, it's the lack of individual audio outputs. It has a cartridge slot. Good condition units sell in the $100 to $130 range. Pros: affordable, Yamaha reliability. Cons: truly not a studio tool with a small display and no individual outs. Number 10, Alesis SR16. This drum machine isn't an 80s drum machine. This is my exception because it came out in 1990. It's been an active product with a few updates for 34 years. That has to be a record for a drum machine, perhaps for any kind of musical instrument. It has some really good specs for its price, so I'm including it. You get 12 pads, a generous display, 28 editing and control buttons, plus a large rotary encoder. On the original 90s era unit back panel, it has 4 audio outputs, a tape in out jack, MIDI in, a combo out through for MIDI. On the updated version in the stores currently, there is a headphone jack on the back panel. The second pair of audio output jacks are combined to one jack. You also get a start-stop foot switch input, a second foot switch input, a 12-volt DC input, and a power button. The unit has 230 24-bit sounds offered both dry and with reverb, or I should say with effects. Max patterns is 200 and max songs is 100. Data can be saved to tape or MIDI system exclusive. It's kind of cool that they kept the tape interface on there. The pads are velocity sensitive. There are 50 preset patterns with variations and fills. Brand new units sell for $149. Used early models and updated versions sell used in the $90 to $120 range. There is no good reason that I can think of to buy a used unit at the going prices. Big music stores offer free shipping, and once you factor in shipping on the used units, you're close to full retail. If you're interested in this unit, buy one new in the box with a warranty. Pros: 34 years as a top seller for Alesis is a good recommendation. Nice, easy to read screen and a lot of quality drum sounds. Cons: perhaps not really a studio tool with only 4 audio outputs, but you can get by that, and also it's not truly a classic 80s drum machine. Number 9, Roland R8 Mark I and Mark II. When the R8 was introduced in 1989, I thought it was a step in the right direction. It kind of took some of the old Boss DR110 screen elements and incorporated it. Its larger display and 4x16 drum grid layout make it a lot more user-friendly. It has over 30 buttons in addition to the 16 drum pads. Additionally, it has 2 sliders, one for volume and one for data entry. You get 32 voice polyphony, 100 patterns, 10 songs, 2 card slots, and 68 sounds. To me, 68 sounds ain't enough, not for 1989. A year earlier, Korg released the M1 with a sound set entirely made of samples that includes 44 drum sounds. Yes, it cost a lot more, but I still think Roland missed an opportunity to dominate. Pros: punchy sounds, a nice display for the time, and 8 individual audio outputs. Cons: sound set could be bigger. Nice condition units often fetch huge premiums. This is a unit that was used heavily by a lot of famous people. Some units look like they are 10 times their age. Number 8, Yamaha RX11. This is the big brother to the RX15, which I already mentioned was introduced in 1984. You get 16 pads instead of 12, essentially the same 16x2 display and 2 character LED display, 22 editing buttons, 4 additional larger function buttons, and 3 sliders. A volume slider, a tempo slider, and a data slider. You get 4-note polyphony, 29 sampled sounds, 100 patterns, 10 songs, and a maximum of 255 parts per song. It has a cartridge slot and also has system-exclusive dumping and loading. You get 10 individual outputs, a stereo output, and a headphone output. The individual outputs give it a big advantage over the RX15 in the studio. This unit has an internal power supply. Now, there's advantages to both. If you have an external power supply and the power supply dies, you can just go to Amazon usually and order a new one for 10 or 15 or 20 bucks. If the internal power supply dies, usually it means that some of the capacitors have died and it needs to be recapped. And that would probably require a trip to a repair store. And they're going to charge you probably at least a $100 bench fee and then some money on top of that. So that can be expensive. One thing about internal power supply devices is usually they're better designed, but not always. I've seen these units selling for the same price as the RX15, and the RX11 is a better unit. Pros: affordable, a good set of individual outputs, and it has system exclusive loading and dumping. Cons: more sounds would have been nice, and that would have helped set it apart from the RX15, and it has that small display. But that's the way things were back in those times. Number 7, Roland TR707. 16 pads and a large LCD display with an overlaid grid. It was released in 1985 and uses an external power supply. You get 4-note polyphony, at least I think it's 4-note, it's hard to tell from the manual, 15 sampled sounds, 64 patterns, and 4 tracks. There are 11 faders for controlling the output levels of the sounds through the 10 audio outputs. Some instruments share faders and outputs. MIDI in, out, and through on standard 5-pin DIN connectors. It has a cartridge slot, but no system exclusive dumping, which is unfortunate. 2 AA batteries maintain data memory when the unit is turned off. And this is important. A lot of units now, we expect them to have a CR2032 battery to maintain memory. Back then, a lot of times it was user-installed batteries. So before those batteries get too low, you need to pull them out and quickly replace them. Otherwise, you'll lose all your patterns. Good condition units sell in the $550 to $750 range. That's a lot. Pros, affordable for a classic 80s TR series drum machine. Easy to find in great condition. Cons, hides in the shadow of the 808 because it is sampled sounds and only 15 of them. I think it's a little bit expensive for what it is, but that's just my opinion. Number 6, Alesis HR16. This is a 16-bit drum machine released in 1988. You get onboard storage for 100 patterns and 100 songs. Patterns can be 682 beats long. It has 49 sampled sounds and 16 voice polyphony. On the front panel, you get 16 trigger pads and 32 other editing and function control buttons. You get 2 sliders, one labeled select and one for volume. There are 9 rectangular LEDs and a 16:2 LCD screen. Good condition units sell in the $200 to $400 range. This is kind of an expensive unit, and it's kind of an unusual looking unit too. It doesn't follow the same form factor as a lot of devices of this time. Pros, decent sounds and reasonable flexibility in programming. Cons, limited studio flexibility with only 4 outputs. Some units are really starting to show their age with the white trigger pads turning yellow. To me, it's kind of strange that they made the trigger pads white. Now that would be great for a dark studio, and a lot of studios are dark, but white trigger pads that are constantly getting hit by your fingers are going to eventually turn black from all the dirt from your fingers and the oils from your skin, and also they do yellow. Number 5, Korg DDM 110 Super Drums. I speak from experience. These drums are not super. Not now, not even back then. This is a very simple drum machine from 1984, and I owned it from new for a few years. You get 9 sampled instruments with 9 pads to trigger them, plus an accent pad. 32 rhythm patterns and 6 songs. 1 stereo output and a headphone output. The display is 3 single-digit LEDs. Saving of external data is to tape. Of course, that would mean a WAV file today. There's probably very few people actually use a cassette tape recorder. It will run on 6 AA batteries or via a 9-volt external power supply. Its specifications are abysmal, so you may be wondering why it's on the list. It boils down to one word: affordability. When I purchased mine, I would have loved a Lindrum or an Oberheim DMX, but I was a poor musician. Purchasing a keyboard magazine for $3.95 just to look at the pictures was a lot of money. And that was about as close as I was ever going to get to the really nice stuff. I purchased the DDM 110 to get experience operating a drum machine. I had fun and I learned a lot. I've seen them priced as low as $90, and they can range up to about $200. I would never buy one because without MIDI clock sync and song position pointer, it wouldn't fit into my workflow. It doesn't have MIDI. It's not very good. If the sounds were so great, I'd sample them, but they're not anything special. If you can find one for $50 in good condition, it's an interesting unit to own and doodle on now and again, kind of like a Casio VL Tone. You should know that there is also a Korg 220 Super Percussion unit that will sync to this unit through a proprietary interface connection using a 5-pin DIN cable, aka a MIDI cable, but it's not MIDI. Pros: Inexpensive and kind of a curiosity as an early PCM drum machine. Also, you'll find plenty in really nice condition. Cons, not a serious production tool, no individual outs, and no MIDI. Number 4, Boss DR110. This is a very simple drum machine from 1983. You get 6 instruments with 6 pads to trigger them, plus an accent pad. There are 12 more buttons for editing and control. 4 knobs allow control of tempo, balance, accent, and volume. 16 preset and 16 user rhythm patterns and 2 songs. An LCD display with grid overlay, 1 mono 1/4-inch output, and a 3.5mm headphone output. It will run on 4 AA batteries or via a 9-volt external power supply. Like the Korg DDM-110, its specifications are abysmal, but it's super affordable. I've seen them priced as low as $100 and they can range up to about $200. It's a simple device that isn't deep. With its generous screen size for its year of manufacture and price, it's a lot better value than the Korg DDM-110, and it sounds good. Pros, inexpensive and kind of a curiosity like the Korg DDM-110. It's a small, portable, fun drum machine to play to. If you wanted to jam and you were a guitarist or a bass player or even a drummer, this would be a great little portable device to use. Cons, not a serious production tool, no individual outs, and no MIDI. Number 3, Yamaha RX5 Digital Rhythm Programmer. This is the big daddy Yamaha drum machine from the mid-80s. It was released in 1986. There is an RX1 surprisingly, but it's a snowmobile and it's also from Yamaha. On the RX5 you get 24 sampled instruments and another 28 that came with the unit on a ROM cartridge. There are 12 more buttons for editing and control. And a lot of times when I'm saying control, some of those buttons are the same size as the pads and they might be for accent or for transport controls like stop, start, and continue. There are 4 knobs that allow control of tempo, balance, accent, and volume. 100 user patterns and 20 songs. It uses cartridge slots to store songs, patterns, and voice data. There are 24 non-velocity trigger pads, 32 editing buttons, and 4 larger buttons for function control. There are sliders for main volume, click level, tempo, and data entry. There are 12 additional faders to control the individual volume of the sounds. Some instruments have to share a fader. There are 14 illuminated display items and a 16 by 2 line display. A lot of the menu functions are silkscreened onto the front panel, which is very helpful and you won't have to keep referring to the manual. On the back you'll find significant connectivity. DC 12-volt in, MIDI in, out, and through on standard 5-pin DIN connectors, a headphone output, stereo output, click output, that's a nice touch, 12 individual mono outputs that are shared by some of the instruments, 2 cartridge slots, and a power button. Prices for one in good condition range from about $350 to $600. Pros, the best Yamaha digital rhythm programmer of that era with serious studio connectivity, and it was used by a lot of pros and famous musicians. Cons, for 1986, a tiny display for such an otherwise great instrument. Number 2, Casio RZ1. It was released in the same year as the Yamaha RX5, 1986. This made them direct competitors, and it's probably why I got a great deal on this unit from Sam Ash circa 1987. I believe the original retail price was $599, and I paid $249. You get 16 trigger pads for the 12 factory sampled instruments and the ability to sample up to 4 more yourself. I say up to 4 because you only get 0.8 seconds of sample time total. That's 0.2 seconds per sample pad. By combining 2 or all 4 sample buttons, you can double or quadruple your sample time, but you reduce the number of user samples. There are 26 buttons for editing and 4 for control. 10 volume sliders control the sounds, which means some sliders are shared by more than one sound. The back panel has some studio level connectivity. The RZ1 uses a standard IEC power cable. There are 10 individual audio line outputs, a stereo pair, and a headphone output. MIDI in, out, and through is on 5-pin DIN connectors. 2 small rotary potentiometers allow you to adjust the tone of the samples as pairs. If you're familiar with those little knobs that you see on the back of a lot of synths and other tech for controlling, say, the contrast of the screen, they look like that. A mono audio input is used to sample your own sounds into the unit and has a switch for choosing between mic and line levels. There's also a foot switch input for starting and stopping playback and a power switch. Internal program data can be saved to tape. 100 user patterns and 20 songs. Prices for one in good condition range from about $230 to $400. A few years ago, I looked at prices out of curiosity, having owned one, and they were going for a lot more money, somewhere around about $800, $900, and I was just like, wow, that's amazing. Why are they so expensive? I'm happy to see that the market has calmed down a bit. Low 200s is probably a good price, and probably high 200s for one in really good condition is a fair price. The RX5 and this unit were competitors, and I believe it was the Yamaha that folks really wanted. They both have something the other doesn't have. Pros, preset PCM sounds are good, and it's one of the first budget sampling drum machines to exist. Good connectivity and okay MIDI. Cons, a display with a single line of 16 characters, not a name that people are anxious to add to their studio, market prices that can be very irrational from time to time. That brings me to number 1. Before I give you the top dog, I want to tell you why it wins. It wins the number 1 spot for good sounds, a good price point, but it certainly has plenty of shortcomings. The RX5 is probably the best classic drum machine on this list. They call it a rhythm programmer or something like that. But here goes. Number 1, Yamaha RX-17. This is the baby sister to all the other Yamaha RX rhythm programmers on this list. It was released in 1987, and because of that, being a little bit newer, it got some upgrades. You get 13 trigger pads plus the accent trigger, 2 more large buttons for function control, and 24 smaller buttons for editing, a volume slider and a tempo slider. The display is 16 by 2 and it's LCD. The back panel has MIDI in and out on 5-pin DINs, a stereo output, and a headphone jack. Power is via an external adapter, and there is a power switch. You get 4-note polyphony, 26 sampled sounds, 100 patterns, 10 songs, and a maximum of 999 parts per song, with a total of 1,200 parts max for all your songs. You can save to tape or MIDI system exclusive. Good condition units sell in the $60 to $100 range. Pros: budget priced, good sounds for its time, and it has MIDI system exclusive loading and dumping. Cons: it's hard to beat up on this unit at a $60 price point, but 4 individual outs would have made it more studio friendly. That's almost it for this top 11 list. but I have 3 important points to make, and I hope you'll stick around. First, don't forget keyboards can have great drum sounds, and if they are workstations, they are also essentially a drum machine. Case in point, the 1988 Korg M1 has 44 drum sounds, onboard effects, and a sequencer, essentially making it a drum machine. When I mentioned it previously, we were talking about how it was very expensive back in 1988. Now I've seen M1s as low as $400, but $650 is closer to the going rate. Also, it has 2 card slots, and one of those is a PCM card slot, so you can add additional drum sounds. Second point, you must have realistic expectations when it comes to classic gear. Gear from 40 years ago doesn't have a lot of the features and flexibility we take for granted today. For example, some of these drum machines have 20, 30 or more sounds. We take for granted that you can take a large sound set like that and map it to the keyboard. For a lot of these machines, unless they are assigned to a pad, they are unable to be triggered. With some ingenuity, there are ways around these limitations, but classic gear has limitations. Be aware of that. Lastly, and I've said this before, most of the gear on this list is over or is pushing 40 years old. Buying classic instruments comes with a lot of risk, and that can mean repair expense. Just be aware of that. This is why I jammed the Alesis SR16 into this list. For $150, you get something that's brand new, in the box, has over 200 sounds, and some effects on some of those drums, and you get a warranty. With that said, I'm never trying to steer you towards a piece of gear. The SR16 isn't a classic 80s drum machine. You have to decide what you want and what you're willing to spend your hard-earned dollars on. I just don't want anybody to be unhappy with any of the choices they make. Hopefully I haven't wasted your time. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.